Given your opposition to Ronald Reagan's programs, will the National Unity Party or yourself definitely make some kind of endorsement in the fall?
Well, as I said, I think as an officer of a party, I can't commit that party to an endorsement at this time. The campaign has not yet run its course, but more importantly, I think that's a decision that ought to be a collective judgment. It's no secret that I not only ran against Mr. Reagan, that I disagree fundamentally with his policies. I think they're a disaster in Central America. I think that, as one businessman put it just this morning, there's a ticking time bomb as far as his economic policies are concerned. So I'm fundamentally opposed to the idea that he be reelected. But for any formal endorsement, that would have to await the decision of a convention of the party.
You talked very eloquently about peace and justice and the economy, all the great issues of our day, but how really does your political lexicon differ from that of the major parties? Everybody talks about Grenada. Everybody talks about
There
justice.
is no one, sir, that will have in his party platform come June, July, and August of this year this statement: this party must be overwhelmingly committed to the rule of law in international affairs and to the development of institutions for the settlement of international disputes above the claims of unfettered sovereignty. There is nobody that is going to have that in their platform.
Good point. Does this mean that you would oppose any covert action to destabilize a foreign government, be it in Nicaragua or the Middle East or anywhere else? Which is, I think, what you're implying with this statement.
I think that is a fair implication. I am opposed. I am opposed to our arrogating to ourselves the decision as to what kind of government another country has.
What should we help the Afghan rebels covertly?
They have been brutally assaulted.
Yes.
In violation, and I'm not an international lawyer, but in violation of international law. And you are asking me that question at a time when, of course, we have not yet reached the stage in human development that I wish we had reached, of the codification of the kind of international law and justice that would then permit its interpretation and enforcement by a truly international organization, and if need be, an international force. So I don't think that under the terms of what I have said, that I would rule that out.
What are the chances that your party or your party's principles will be co-opted into one of the two major parties, just like the Populists?
Well, it won't happen in 1984. If they see the ideas that we are discussing really taking holes in the minds of the American people, I wouldn't rule out they're reaching out for one idea or another and saying, yes, this too is a part of our program. But for me, that would be a victory. It's the ideas that really count. So I'm not disturbed at that prospect. In any event, it isn't going to happen in 1984.
Did partisan emergence persuade you not to run?
No. Although, very frankly, as I think I said in answer to a previous question, Juan, I find many of his ideas very attractive. And I was at one time hopeful that he indeed might be the nominee of the Democratic Party. But it's been clear for some time that he's probably not going to win. And so I don't honestly believe that his campaign was a deterrent or a factor in the decision.
Since you don't have a candidate, you won't have a candidate in November, are you going to vote in the November election?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Oh, yes.
You made reference briefly to Jesse Jackson not being the Super Bowl or something.
Well, I just said that, the election isn't an athletic contest. It isn't a Super Bowl.
You don't believe he's a viable candidate at all?
Well, that depends, I guess, on how you determine viability. Nobody believes that he will win the nomination, and I don't either. But I certainly don't dismiss him as just extraneous to the process. I think he's to be commended. He's raised some issues that no other Democratic candidate has raised. The issue of South Africa, which I think ought to be talked about. He has raised it. And he has raised the consciousness of particularly the blacks of this country to a new level, and for that, again, he's to be commended. He's complained about the rules of his own party, the winner take all, the 20% threshold, the runoff primary, and so on. So no, I think from that standpoint, he's a very viable candidate, and he's performed a great service.
Might you run in '88?
No.
Running for
are you
president
going
is
to
a
be
sure
doing?
way to get publicity. You mentioned to the young gentleman who asked the question that it was a close call on whether you should go that way.
Yeah.
How do you think that you'll be able to get the same kind of publicity without a candidacy?
With your help, with your help. As I travel around the country and as I make speeches that no other candidate, Democrat or Republican, is willing to make, and say something that is noteworthy and worth reporting, I hope it'll be reported. Now, I'm going to say something at this point. I am. I received a number of calls in my office over the past several days from networks, principally, but from some other members of the media as well, insisting we've got to know whether John Anderson is going to announce for president tonight, because if he is, we'll come. If he isn't, we won't be there. I think that the press is not performing its service to the American people. If all that the election process has become is to focus and to concentrate on individuals and where they are in the standings and where they are in the race, and where a new idea, not really new, I concede that because others have tried it, but at least it's new in 1984. Where a new idea that somebody is not going to run for the presidency but believes that the time has come to firmly opt for the formation, the organization of a new party, I think it's a tragedy that that is not considered newsworthy, and therefore, even though I'm preaching to the choir, and I will therefore again thank you who have come, I point that out. I don't think that those who take that attitude and that view of our campaigns are discharging their responsibility to the American people.
Mr. Henson, you proposed a codification of international law.
Yeah.
But given the fact that international law needs a uniform consent to that law, and that there is a uniform consent for the rather ineffectual laws we already have,
Yeah.
how do you propose to...
Well, admittedly, we've been working on it since Grotius took pen in hand and sat down in the 16th century. And I'm not suggesting that it's going to happen overnight, that the Parliament of Man will assemble and that we will be able to get delegates apportioned and they're going to agree and write it. It's going to be an evolutionary process, but it at least ought to be a goal. John F. Kennedy talked about it 23 years ago when he said in his inauguration, let us not simply create a new balance of power, let us build a world based on the rule of law. Until we at least have the goal, until we at least have the vision, we know nothing is going to happen. I don't think it'll be easy. I think it'll be a slow, incremental, evolutionary process. But I want to see the world advised that this country has at least set its foot upon that path, on that course.
At this point, would you go along with the prognosticators who say that Reagan will be reelected?
I would be forced to do that. I would be forced if the latest survey showing 55% approval continue to hold, as apparently they are, I would be obliged to conclude that.
How many registered members of your party do you have now, and how many do you expect to have by the end of the year?
Well, we have had roughly 10,000 contributors to the idea of a new party, and I think that when people contribute, yes, when people give some money, that I think is a good sign. How many we could acquire between now and the end of the year, I think depends on how many salesmen we can recruit to go out and try to, we have an active, despite the fact that we couldn't qualify in California, couldn't get the 80,000 registrations. When I was in the West last week, I met with the chairman of the California National Unity Party. He's working, he's enthused, he's putting out a monthly publication to the members of the party in the Southern California area. So I'm not going to make any rash predictions, you know, that we're going to have 100,000 people who have signed.
A goal a year from now or 2 years from now?
Well, I'll have to think about that. I just haven't done that.
Are you going to be spending full time as a salesman for the party?
Well, let me put it this way. I have 5 children and a wife. 3 of those children are in one stage or another of the educational process, and I do have to tend to my family affairs and be concerned about making a living. As they say in the want ads, no reasonable offer will be refused. So I will spend as much time as I can.
That was the next question. Do you have a job or independent?
No, I'm not a man of independent will, so I will have to discharge my the responsibilities that I discussed. But I will.
What kind of salary does the party pay?
That decision has not been made.
Are you still working as an attorney, as a private,
No, I'm not.
as a TV commentator?
No. I have been fortunate enough to derive some income from lecture fees, and I have also published a book, which, although it may not sell as well as Mayor Koch's book, I hope a few people will buy some copies.
Is your party working with like the Libertarians and some of the other small parties on ballot access reform?
Well, there have been some contacts on that score, and the conversations are yet to be held. But we, in the interest generally of opening up the process to new political parties, we would be willing to consider that. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's see. That's not too bad. It's only 9 o'clock.